Guys, welcome back to my channel, and this is INTRIGUE-CREST. Trust you're doing very well. I've missed you guys so much, and trust me when I say I'm back like I never left. Are you aware that divorce not mutually consented can turn into a very dangerous situation? This is a summary story of Barbara, Tommey, and Pastor Sylvester Ofori. In the year 2015, Barbara Tommey was 21 years old, a fresh university graduate, beautiful, ambitious, full of life. She had a whole lot going on for her, much more. She had so much that she wanted from life. And she was that kind of young girl who walked the talk. She put in so much effort to make every of her dream actualize. Barbara was a go-getter. Residing in Orlando, USA, one fateful day, Barbara was in church and a pastor was said to have visited their church and preached. During that service, the pastor was said to have prophesied that Barbara was destined to get married to a pastor. This preacher went further to state the name of the pastor that God had revealed to him as Barbara's ordained husband. The preacher said the pastor ordained to marry Barbara was named Sylvester. Coincidentally, there in that church was a pastor who was the general overseer of Floodgates of Heaven International Ministry in Orlando. This pastor was young and handsome, with a large congregation to his church. He was every young Christian woman's dream. After that prophecy, Barbara and Sylvester met and they both fell in love with themselves. They began building a relationship. Soon, Sylvester proposed marriage to Barbara. Barbara was just 21 years old at the time Sylvester proposed. Now, even though Barbara was so excited, she was ready to get married to her pastor fiance, but her parents were against it. They felt that Barbara had a whole future ahead of her to get married, but that should come after she must have achieved most of her dreams that she already had in the pipeline. But Barbara was not going to back down. She was ready to marry her Prince Charming, one that was declared to be ordained for her on the pulpit, one that was already a general overseer of his own church with a congregation of over 60,000 members. Come on. Not only was Barbara's family against the marriage plans, Sylvester's family were neither in support of the marriage between Barbara and Sylvester. And the reason why Sylvester's family were against it was simply because of cultural differences. It is said that Barbara's families are the Airways, while Sylvester's families are the Asantes. So that cultural difference did play out hugely. But despite all the opposition from both families, the love between Barbara and Sylvester was going to overcome. And in September 2015, Barbara got married to her sweetheart, Pastor Sylvester Ofori. Life began for this young couple, and what Barbara had envisioned to be her forever after was soon going to turn into a nightmare. It is said that in only a matter of few months, Barbara had the shock of her life when she discovered that Pastor Sylvester was nothing close to what he portrayed himself publicly to be. It turned out Sylvester had a double life, one that Barbara was going to struggle hard to live with. Sylvester unmasked his other side, the side that Barbara never thought could exist. But therein her handsome husband, pastor, and prophet was a dark side that was impossible to fathom. It is said that Sylvester began beating Barbara in that marriage. He became a violent person, or more like he unfolded his violent personality that had always been there. Sylvester will beat Barbara at the slightest provocation. She went through series of abuse in that marriage. But not for a day did Barbara open her mouth to tell her family what she was going through. Some of her family members described her as very secretive. I imagine Barbara was the kind of Christian young girl who would go through any kind of pain but preserve her husband's image. More so, this husband was a pastor and a prophet. Barbara was the kind of woman who wouldn't want the world to see her husband for whom he truly was. She would rather preserve the image of him that his church members, her parents, her friends, and the public at large had of him, while she suffered behind closed doors. Unfortunately, I imagine Barbara thought she could handle it, or she thought she could pray him out of it. I can only imagine the number of times she went on her knees to pray to God, asking him to change her husband for good. I can only imagine the number of times she declared fasting for herself, asking God to show mercy to her marriage so that her husband would turn to a sweet, loving man that she thought he was at first. But no, he became worse and worse as the days went by. And as the days went by, it became even more difficult for Barbara to handle this husband of hers, who was a pastor and a prophet, only on the pulpit and to the public, but certainly never acted so to her, his wife. While all these series of abuses were ongoing, you know that time waits for no one. Time was doing its thing. Time was flying by. And in no time, Barbara and Sylvester were 5 years in their marriage. Unfortunately, they had no child in that union. It is said that even though Barbara never confided in her family members as to the abuse her husband was subjecting her to, she was said to have confided in a few people that Sylvester held in high esteem, because she believed he could listen to those people. Talking about a few pastors whom she confided in them, and they were said to have called Sylvester to order. But nah, Sylvester never changed to do better by his wife. It got to a point that Barbara looked herself in the mirror and told herself, nah, I'm doing this no more. And so she moved out of her husband's home in Orlando and she filed for a divorce. Just as you would expect of any abuser, they never like their victims finding freedom. Nah, a narcissist will not take it lying low when his victim makes move to achieve freedom from their grip of abuse. And so the very moment Sylvester discovered that Barbara had filed for a divorce, Sylvester became furious. He was determined to ruin Barbara. It was a clear case of, if I can't have you, then no one will. If I can't have you, then you probably will cease to exist. On this fateful day, the 7th of September 2020, Barbara needed to pick some important documents of hers that were still in her husband's house in Orlando. And so she reached out to her brother and one of her sisters to accompany her to her husband's house so she could pick up those documents. Your guess is as good as mine. She knew how violent her husband was, and she knew better not to go to his house without anyone accompanying her. So she went in company of her siblings, thinking they would be able to shield her from a violent husband. But Barbara was wrong. As soon as Barbara and her siblings got to her estranged husband's home, she made move to go in and pick her documents. But the unexpected happened. Sylvester was said to have pounced on Barbara, holding her neck with both hands, choking her to the point where he wanted her to be breathless. But now, her brother wasn't going to stand by and watch this so-called pastor unalive his sister right in his presence. And so her brother stepped in, overpowered Pastor Sylvester, held him down until Barbara went in and picked up her documents. And when she got out, he began to make threats that he was going to unalive Barbara. And Barbara's brother said to Barbara, "You cannot take these threats lightly." He insisted you would have to make an official report with the police. In fact, Barbara's brother insisted that they should call the police immediately. But Barbara was seen calming her brother down in that video, saying she didn't want the whole issue to escalate. There was no need to call the police or involve the police. But her brother insisted. He said, "This man just said he's going to unalive you. You cannot let such threats to go like that. You have to make an official police report." Barbara never took that serious. What was even more shocking was Pastor Sylvester telling Barbara's brother that if he doesn't unalive Barbara, then he is fake. Thankfully, all of those were caught on video. Barbara's sister had everything covered on video, while Sylvester made an attempt to unalive Barbara, and even when her brother overpowered him, all of those were recorded, thankfully. After the whole altercation on the 7th of September 2020, Barbara went about with her life, hoping that this whole nightmare would come to an end as soon as the divorce proceedings are finalized. But she had no idea what was coming. And just a day after that ugly altercation, 8th of September 2020, Barbara drove into the parking lot of her work surrounding. She had just pulled over, stepped out of the car, and walked towards the entrance of the office, when her estranged husband pulled out of his car with a gun. And Barbara was terrified. She ran towards her office door. She began banging on the door for someone to open up. She was in office a bit earlier than the resumption time, and so she was knocking on the door for anyone who was inside to help her open up. But it was too late. Her estranged husband made progress as he approached her by the door. He pulled out that gun and fired a shot. Immediately, Barbara was said to have collapsed on the floor. And this pastor, so-called prophet Sylvester, moved closer to where his wife was laying, and he fired that gun into Barbara's head 6 good times, confirming that he had unalived Barbara before he turned around and walked into his car and drove away as though nothing happened. Barbara was found in the pool of her own blood. She was rushed to the hospital, pronounced dead on arrival. It was like a nightmare that her family could wake up from. It was unreal. How could that be true? But that was the sad reality of the Tommey's family. Their baby girl, a young, beautiful, ambitious, vibrant lady, had just been unalived. The police got to the crime scene and they began investigation immediately. As you would imagine, it didn't take time before they discovered who the shooter was, because there was a CCTV footage that clearly showed Prophet or Pastor Sylvester firing that gun into Barbara's head. Pastor Sylvester was arrested by the police and he was charged with first-degree murder and being in possession of firearm. This man showed little or no remorse all through the trial. Barbara's death was a sad reality for the Tommeys, but they had to accept the reality that they had to deal with. On the 26th of September 2020, Barbara was laid to rest amidst tears, amidst wailings, amidst groanings. Unfortunately, she was gone, and gone forever. And all that her family left with were her memories and the hope that justice will prevail at the end of Sylvester's trial. Now, after this long trial of the so-called prophets, judgment finally came through a few weeks ago, and Pastor or Prophet Sylvester Ofori was found guilty of first-degree murder by an Orange County judge. He has since been sentenced to life in jail, life imprisonment. Whew. Finally, some relief, finally some good news. Unfortunately, as good as this news is, it's not going to bring Barbara back. It's not going to restore her life. It's not going to take away the pains that her parents will live with, the pains that her siblings, her genuine loved ones, will have to deal with for the rest of their lives. But overall, we are thankful that justice has prevailed. We pray that Barbara's soul will continue to rest in peace. I know that many of you have got your thoughts that you would love to share on this story, and I would be glad to read your thoughts in the comment section. Kindly put your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think about this tragic story of Barbara, Tommey, and Sylvester Ofori? Kindly put your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to read them and I would engage. If you're new to my channel, please hit the notification bell so you will have all the info as soon as I update videos, and do well to subscribe because I've got so much more for you on INTRIGUE-CREST. Don't go away without subscribing, and do well to like and share this video. You just may be saving someone's life, because guess what? This video may be a cue to someone to leave before it gets to that state of them being unalive by the same person they thought was the love of their life. Do well to save someone's life today by sharing this video. In the meantime, guys, take care of yourself, take care of your emotions, take care of your mental health, be kind to yourself, be kind to the people around you, and always, always stay safe. I remain Dorcas Igil Olukun, and I love you guys.